Hi, everyone. I'm Adil Mehmood, tech startup founder named as Hatzs mentioned, and your host of this podcast. So we have our honorable guest with us, Andres Vergara, and he have experience of like 20 years in the IT industry for the past 20 years. And he will share us with some kind of insights and experiences they have entire life of his IT journey and stuff. So let's go for introduction from Andres regarding his 20 years journey and the background. So will you please introduce yourself towards the audience, Andres?
Thank you, Adil, and thank you for inviting me. I don't want to take too long explaining 20 years, but just quickly, just my background. I started in software. I had a degree in computer science right out of college. I was recruited by a professor into a startup company that one of his friends had in Silicon Valley. And so I was recruited to this company. I was like the fifth employee, I think, for this startup
Mhm.
company in Silicon Valley, and this was back in 2007, and the iPhone wasn't out yet. And
Mhm.
the startup company, we were trying to do mobile applications on the flip phone. So you can imagine how that was. So we were
Yeah.
a little bit ahead of the time. So I was with this company for about 2 years, I think, and
Mhm.
then we actually got acquired by much bigger company. It was Citrix acquired us, and
Mhm.
they wanted us to be like the foundation for the Silicon Valley office of Citrix, because their headquarters was in Miami or in the Fort Lauderdale, I think, the Miami area. So then I entered the corporate world. It's a complete change, of course. And I worked for Citrix on go to meeting, go to webinar, which was like it was really the first products that were like Zoom,
Mhm.
back in the days, a long time ago. And then Zoom came out and became the product to go to, and that's what everybody knows. But what most people don't know is that before Zoom was go to webinar, and that's what everyone used before Zoom, before the pandemic, really. And so I worked for that for a long time. Then I went through cycles of my division got spun off, became its own company, and then it was acquired again by another bigger company. And I went on these cycles of startup, big company, smaller company, big company again,
Mhm.
until right after the pandemic. And then my corporate career ended because the company was acquired by a venture capitalist, not a venture capitalist company, but I can't think of the name now. It was acquired by an activist company, essentially, like a financial company that acquired it. And then trying to improve operations, they closed all of the United States offices, moved the jobs over to Germany and India. And so I got laid off in that process.
Mhm.
And then since then, been just doing my own thing since that. That was fairly close to the
Mhm.
release of ChatGPT, I think.
That's
Yeah.
really great. That's really great. So we are here today talking about artificial intelligence. So our topic is like how AI is changing the software industry. And in this podcast, we are exploring how artificial intelligence is reshaping software delivery, product strategies, and workforce development in the modern era. So my first question towards you is just relevant towards like how you saw your previous experience where you faced 2 to 3 disruptive technology shifts and now you can witnessing right now AI. So what kind of a difference in the previous past area where you just witnessed 2 to 3 disruptive technology changes like Google browsing stuff and the other like mobile application stuff, like people are moving towards responsive stuff. Now the AI is here. So what is the difference?
I think one of the big differences, so just the cycles that I saw, right? When I was in my startup company, creating software was not necessarily easy, especially deploying it to production. Should I say it wasn't easy at all. I remember we had in our office, we had a rack with our servers. It was like Dell Blade servers, and that was our production
Um,
servers. And so there was no cloud. Cloud was just barely beginning to start at that point. And so you really had to have your own data centers. And so and SaaS were just also beginning to be a thing at that point. There was a lot of enterprise software, but not SaaS, right? And so the
mhm,
first shift that I saw was moving from enterprise to SaaS,
mhm,
right? And then starting to adopt cloud a little bit after that. And so on that big shift, it was still not really affecting the software developer. really, enterprise to SaaS. So the way you build the software was completely different, but it wasn't really a big thing for developers in that sense. When cloud came on later on,
Uh-huh.
that was a big shift for developers because especially when cloud matured, because now developers were in control of production assets, right? So you could do infrastructure as code, and that
Uh-huh.
really enabled developers to ship things very fast because you didn't have the bottleneck anymore of having to have like this big infrastructure setup that needed to be managed by specialized people and so on and so forth. So that shifted things also drastically. Um,
So you are saying like the disruptive 2 to 3 technology shifts are not that much crazy as right now the AI one. It's just
yeah,
like a
it's not.
whole paradigm shift.
Yeah, because when you went to cloud, it empowered the developer, but not really every developer,
Uh-huh.
right? Now, when you introduce it, when the AI was introduced, the
Uh-huh.
large language models, essentially, then the difference is that now that really empowers every single developer. Like, right,
Yeah.
and it's also the cost is like almost nothing, right? So if you were a developer when cloud became a thing and it started maturing, you were empowered now to deploy things. So if you were a solopreneur, for example, you
Uh-huh.
didn't have to buy blades anymore, which were really expensive, and have a data center. You could just make your software and deploy it to the cloud, and that reduced the cost drastically, right? But that
Uh-huh.
cost of deployment, it wasn't still necessarily cheap. It empowered you, but it wasn't necessarily a cheap thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that has shifted completely with AI, where AI now empowers the developer to create the software, right?
Uh-huh.
The deployment is already, that problem is fixed already. There is so many companies now that you can deploy for very cheap, right? You don't have to
Uh-huh.
go to AWS anymore. But the bottleneck became, once the deployment was solved, the bottleneck for the software developer became, how do I write these very complex applications all by myself? Like
Uh-huh.
there was still a barrier to entry in the sense that you still needed a team. You still
Yeah.
needed right? You still needed a lot of know-how as far as researching. When when you think about the standard software development
Uh-huh.
cycle and the standard software development team, you have the product manager, the designer, you have the developer, right? And
Uh-huh.
with AI, the developer became all of them. And so
Uh-huh.
now the developer can can fill the role of the product manager, or the AI can help fill the role of the product manager, should I say. Same for
So
the
you're saying,
designs. Yeah.
so you're saying like still the software engineering is a golden ticket.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Especially if you have a lot of experience right now
Yeah.
in
Uh-huh.
software engineering,
Uh-huh.
then you became really valuable, right? Really, really valuable.
Uh-huh.
Because
That's
with AI now not only your output increased, but the things that you can do
uh-huh.
also became like really wide now.
Uh-huh.
And AI can write code now, as we all know, but
Uh-huh.
you still need to drive the AI into doing the right things.
So my question, we just continue with this, like how the AI tools like GitHub Copilot, Cursor, and AI-powered testing platforms actually changing the day-to-day delivery of software service from your frontline experience. So is there like more productive sessions are coming up, like developers are becoming more productive, or how companies are taking this thing? Like as you saw, a lot of layoff is happening around the world. So sometimes they're saying we don't need the developers. We don't need 10, 20 developers. We now need just 5, 4 developers and we can go for it. So how you see those tools for developers or software engineers, how they can leverage it so they cannot be replaceable?
So I think there is a few things at play here. One of them is that the Jarbone's paradox. Do you know what the Jarbone's paradox is? You know what it says?
No,
Okay, so
no.
so this was back in the days. Steam engines use coal, right? So they will use a lot of coal,
Yeah.
and steam engines at some point became very efficient. They're starting to
Mhm.
become so efficient that they needed less coal to be able to have the same output,
Yeah.
right? And so people started saying that, oh my God, the engines are becoming so efficient that we really don't need that much coal anymore, right? The demand for coal is going to go down. The coal industries, the coal mining industries are going to disappear, and then the world's gonna end type of thing. And
Uh-huh.
what ended up happening instead is that because the use of the steam engines became so efficient with coal, that allowed to increase the efficiency of things. And by increasing the efficiency of things, then you needed more coal engines to do more things. And so the coal engines exploded in the sense that now there were more coal engines everywhere. And
Yeah.
because you have all of these coal engines, now you need more coal. And so
Oh,
the demand for coal didn't go down at all. It actually increased drastically
yeah.
because
So
you
you're
needed more
saying
coal
like,
engines.
every problem have a solution and every solution create problems. So with the passage of time, when the things are getting paced up, or you can say fast, the new applications coming to the world is just like drastically increased. So the number of problem will be there more, and the demand and supply will be more, and more engineer will be needed. Isn't correct?
Yeah, yeah. So what I'm saying, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is now creating software, the efficiency of creating software has increased drastically, right? So a single software engineer that knows what he's doing with AI,
Hmm.
his or her productivity increased drastically, right?
Uh,
So now they can create software a lot faster. The sky is the limit type of thing because now AI can help you do all these things that a single developer couldn't do anymore. And so there was that efficiency increase. And so if we compare it back to the coal engine, right?
hmm.
Because you increase in efficiency, then there is more demand for it. So there will be more demand for software. We may
Uh-huh.
not see that right now because we're still in it, right? In that
Uh-huh.
process. But that will do that. What that is going to result is in an increase in demands for software. And I'll give you an
Uh-huh.
example. For example, custom software applications for company processes, they were only
Uh-huh.
really available for enterprises that could pay, $500,000 for a software shop to
Hmm.
develop their own custom application.
Hmm.
Now, small businesses with, 2 million in revenue can go in and say, I want my own custom software for my custom processes. And the cost is now $50,000 or
Hmm.
$100,000. And I
Yeah.
can afford it, right? And so there is that. So now all of these small businesses want their own software. So there's this huge demand in software
Uh-huh.
creation now that will be coming. We haven't, it's not here yet, but that will be coming. And so what
Yeah,
does
but
that mean?
there's
Is that you need
yeah.
more software engineers, right? So the software
Yeah.
engineers don't really go away. The
Yeah,
role shifts a little bit.
but I saw some delusion on the SMB side, like small medium businesses or small medium enterprises. Like they are more over towards like they can do the things by their own self. Like the tools like Rapplet, Lovables. So they have a delusion that there is no that much hours are required for the developers to just work on. So the delusion of creating the things by their own is getting faster and giving people a illusion and a delusion that I'll create a product which will handle a good number of subscriber. Even though I'm not a techie guy, I'm a layman who don't know about technology. I can do a good prompt and I will get an application. So what do you see those things like where we are seeing the demand, but we are also seeing the delusion the SMB owners have.
Yeah, so Lovable and essentially Vibe coding, I see it as being really useful for internal tools, small internal tools and applications. Like
Mhm.
that's really it's really valuable for a company to now say, oh, I need to do this very specific thing, and now I can just vibe code a small application to just do it for me, right? So I think that's viable. And that's a huge increase in enablement for companies, small and big, both. Now, where you start
Mhm.
crossing the line is when you start saying, when the application gets pretty complex. So for example, when you start saying, I want to handle all of my company's workflows, right?
Mhm.
And the company workflows they have all these edge cases, and then they have invariants that you need to keep, and these have
Mhm.
all of these domain rules and all of these things. And if you're not a experienced software engineer, um, then it's going to be a recipe for disaster. So you might get something working. And I think the illusion is that Lovable will give you something that seems to work well.
Mhm.
But when you start getting into the edge cases, into the invariants and into the things that
Yeah.
really matter, it's not going to perform well. It's actually going to probably fail on those things. And then there is also the maintenance and scalability problem where as you add more code over time, then it just creates a big spaghetti ball right? And
Carry on this.
that's go ahead.
Carry on
Yeah.
your topic. Carry on your topic with it. Like I saw when people are just making a SaaS application that much with a pace with the help of AI. Now the demand increase for DevOps. If you saw the market, people are hiring more MLOps or DevOps engineer because the products got doomsday and has a kind of infrastructure problem or scalability problem. So I saw this thing is also coming in the market. People are hiring on a very good demand for DevOps, dev operations. So what do you say about it? Like this happening because of the AI delusion they have in the start?
I actually have not seen that, but what I can say about that is that if you try to solve a scalability problem, if your dev team is using AI and you're
Hmm.
facing scalability issues, right?
Yeah.
Throwing DevOps at the problem is not going to solve the problem because it's just
Hmm.
going. You're just really masking what's happening underneath, right?
Yeah.
And the I think what without obviously knowing any details of anything, what it sounds like is happening is that since the dev team is using AI to code, they're probably not considering architecture and scalability
Hmm.
concerns from the get go when you develop the software.
Hmm.
And AI will not do that for you, right? AI will not do systems design. AI will not keep architecture invariants. AI will not
Hmm.
worry about scalability concerns. AI will worry about that your application looks to be working,
Hmm.
right? That's what
So
AI
what?
cares about.
That's good. That's a good knowledge I just got. So my next thing is relevant towards LLMs and foundation models have dramatically lowered the cost of building intelligence features. Does this commoditize AI in products, or does it create new opportunities for differentiations?
So I think it's not necessarily an AI thing because if you think about it, if I add a button that says summarize with AI, right, or
Hmm.
something like that, then that's not really creating any value. Like what value is
Hmm.
that creating, right? And so you can think about it that way. If they if the features that I introduce using AI are just
Hmm.
bolting AI on top of things, I don't
Hmm.
think that adds any value. Like anybody can do that. Who
Hmm.
cannot do that, right?
Hmm.
Anybody can take an existing software and just say, I'm just now going to bolt AI things in there. And that
Hmm.
really doesn't do anything because everybody will be able to do that. When it comes, when you want to use AI as a differentiator, is to collapse workflows, right? So, for
Yeah.
example, a workflow that used to take 10 steps and had manual things in there, AI can
Hmm.
collapse it into a two-step process with human oversight, for
Yeah.
example.
So that. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so that has a lot of value, right? Another thing that AI now enables is that you can go from managing something to being managed by AI. And this is actually where the world is going right now. And
Hmm.
so if you use AI every day, like for everything, you quickly start
Hmm.
realizing, like, why am I doing this thing manually? Right. For example, I'll give you an example in the software developer world, right? So we
Hmm.
use Jira and
Hmm.
Linear and things like that,
Yeah.
and we have to go in and create the tickets, and we have to go in and update tickets, and we have to move something on the Kanban board, and that's
Hmm.
the work that the developer does, right?
Yeah.
When you
Definitely.
start developing with AI, and also another thing that the developer does constantly is they have to, when you make a change, then you go look at the Git diff, right, and then you see what hasn't been checked in, what hasn't been committed, and you have to
Hmm.
stage things and commit and put commit comments and all these things, right? When you
Hmm.
start
Hmm.
developing with AI, and I'm not talking about AI writing the software, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about when you start developing with AI, you quickly start noticing that
Hmm.
AI can do all these things for you, right? So,
Yeah.
so after you're done with some coding, you can just tell the AI commit and push, and it just commits and push, right? You can
Okay.
tell the AI, for example, prepare to merge this, right? And then it will do
Hmm.
all that you needed to do manually. It will go update the changelog, bump the version number. It will create a
Hmm.
PR. It will run the CI. It will watch the CI. If something
Yeah.
fails in the CI, it will go and fix it, right?
Hmm.
And so all these things that the AI is now doing it. And then I can tell the AI with computer vision. Now I can tell the AI go update my Jira ticket, right? And it goes and
Hmm.
updates my Jira ticket, and it says it moves it to, for example, from working to done or whatever, or adds a comment to it. So now the AI can do that for you. And so what you end up realizing is that you no longer have to manage any of these things. Like,
Yeah. So
no.
leveraging AI.
Yeah, but this is where the switch is happening right now. And we're in the very, very early stages of this, is that we're switching from a human has to manage software to the AI
Uh-huh.
is managing the software, right? And what
Uh-huh.
this means is that the software needs to change because the software
Yeah.
is you're no longer going and clicking buttons, right? The AI is now doing that for you.
So you're talking about agentic AI in the softwares, is it?
So what I'm saying is, okay, if I want to do introduce AI in my product, like
Uh-huh.
what should I be doing, right? So one thing is, okay, collapse workflows. The other one is create outcomes, right?
Uh-huh.
So instead of selling a feature, you sell an outcome, right? And the
Uh-huh.
AI helps you create that outcome. And the other one is let the AI manage things for you, right? And what that means is that it could do it internally in the software, but it also provides the ability for external AIs to manage that software,
Uh-huh.
right? And
So
that's kind
yeah.
of like the agent economy is where that's going.
Yeah. So the question from that area is like which industries in the US market are most primed for agentic software adoptions? What you saw.
I mean, eventually everything is going to have to adjust to that. Right now, what you start seeing right now is that internal. So we're going to start seeing internal things being agentic
Hmm.
before we see external things being agentic, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to see internal processes, internal things moving to agentic workflows, and then eventually you're going to start seeing, and it's already started happening. You're going to start seeing
Uh-huh.
software outside software moving to agentic workflows, right? And
Uh-huh.
so another thing is like, how do you define agentic? Right? Because we're saying agentic, but what is agentic? And so
Uh-huh.
most people think the agentic is AI doing things for you autonomously,
Yeah.
right? So it
Yeah.
goes on those
Most
autonomous
people.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I think there is two levels of that. One is the
Uh-huh.
software itself is doing
Uh-huh.
things for you, right?
Yeah.
And so you create a SaaS application or you modify your SaaS application so that the SaaS application is now outcome based.
Uh-huh.
And so it's now doing things for you. So it's creating an outcome
Yeah.
for you, right? And the second layer of that is the SaaS application allows external AIs to manage it. That's the
Yeah.
other one, right? And that's a
Uh-huh.
big one that I don't think many people think about. And that one is where things are really going,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Because if you just, for example, you can imagine Jira. So just imagine Jira, where
Uh-huh.
Jira is now no longer managed by a human but managed by AI. So
Uh-huh.
Jira itself cannot be agentic by itself because it doesn't know what's happening outside of it,
Yeah.
right? So
True.
Jira cannot say, I'm going to update your ticket because it doesn't really
Uh-huh.
know what's happening outside, on the outside.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it can watch Git commits and everything, but it doesn't really have a perspective of what's happening outside. So what happens
Uh-huh.
is now Jira allows an AI to manage it. So now you have like Cloud Code or Codex. You're coding in Codex and you say update Jira, and
Uh-huh.
then Codex goes and manages Jira. Right, so you have something external
Yeah.
managing that software, and
Uh-huh.
that's where things are going. The agentic economy is where that is going, where you have an AI, a much more mature AI, like let's say ChatGPT 5.5 on a harness like Codex, managing all these external things, right? So we're going to where you're going to have the AI is going to be able to have its own wallet, for example, right? And it actually Stripe now released that functionality. So this is starting to
Yeah.
happen, right? So now the
Yeah.
AI can go and pay for things. It can buy things
Yeah.
for itself. And so when that starts gaining traction, you're going to start seeing a lot of software companies now creating software exclusively for AIs, no longer for humans, because the
Yeah. It's
AI
like,
now has a wallet.
but it's like a problem, like where it's like a guardrails and governance challenges. So how you saw those things, like governance challenges?
So, and it's all baby steps. Right now, you cannot give the AI control over something that you cannot manage a failure, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, I've seen news. I think there was a recent news that was like AI is like Skynet because some company it deleted a company's entire documentation, entire like
Yeah.
important files, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, that's not the AI's fault. That's the human's fault. Like, why would you give the AI access to all of your important files, right?
Yeah.
And
So
so, And so it's about manage failure, right? So you only give the AI the ability to reign over something where you can manage the failure.
Yeah, basically the problem is like human psychology is to whenever you get an easiness or a comfort, you will go for rely on things and dependent. And most people who are not that much strong technology wise, when they just saw this kind of a revolution, they said it's a source of truth. That is wrong. That is why this kind of a things are happening, deleting files, deleting the databases on the production side. So it's a collective measure. Like you don't have to give everything or every access towards AI. Manage it in a proper manner of like precautionary measures you have to
Yeah.
take. And let's move towards like the problem new fresh graduates is facing now. Like they are not getting into the system of software industry because hiring managers in US software companies are screening by using AI fluency, and they are not that much AI fluent. So what kind of a suggestion you will give, like where they have to study, what they have to study if they want to go, or market will gonna accept them, how the market will gonna accept them if they have that kind of a knowledge or experience, because they are fresh graduates, they have to work on their portfolios and stuff.
Yeah. So I don't think it's about style necessarily. So as a graduate software engineer, the important thing that you need to learn that is probably not taught in the schools too well is
Mhm,
systems design and architecture,
mhm,
right? So if you're talking about style, I would say study that. Study system designs and architecture.
mhm,
And I don't mean buy a book and read a book. There are some really good books on software
mhm.
patterns and things like that is worth
Yeah.
studying from a book. But I'm saying, I mean, you can. There is so many open source projects that are good examples of well designed software that you can go in and see and how did they design this software? What's the architecture that's happening here, right?
Mhm,
And so on and so. How did they solve these problems just by looking at the code bases? So I would start doing things like that. As far as AI, you don't study AI, you use AI, right? So
yeah.
there is nothing to study. You just have to use it. Like you really have to just use it. And so you start using AI. The more you use AI, the more you learn what the limitations are, what limits does it have, and how you can push it to do what you want, right? And it's
Mhm,
just really just a matter of using it. Nowadays, having open source projects, it's basically your portfolio, your resume, right? So that's another thing that you can do is just
mhm,
find something interesting that you can develop and open source it and entice other people to use it. And so
mhm,
just having open. So I don't know if you have noticed, but I have noticed lately that
mhm.
on that recruiters are asking for what's your GitHub link, right? What's your
Yeah.
GitHub handle?
Yeah.
Because they want to see that they not only want to see that you have open source projects, they want to see that if you contributed to open source projects.
What?
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and so
That's good.
that's another thing that a recent graduate can do is like, hey, what do I find cool? Let me find a popular open source project on that and see how I can
Mhm.
contribute fixes or features or things like that.
So as you know that like the universities curriculums and high schools and college curriculums are also facing problem to change their syllabus and stuff, and people are doing traditional or you can say obsolete knowledge of computer sciences. So as you know that in the teenage or you can say in your 20s, people are not that much serious, so they have to do much more things on their own behalf now. The university will not go and give them that much more knowledge. They have to explore their ways by their own self. Isn't correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. So in the past, you will graduate with a computer science degree, you apply for a job, and you will get the job, right? You didn't really need to do anything beyond that. It was a pretty straightforward way. Right now that's not the case. Right now, you do have to explore
Uh-huh.
things on your own. Like you do have to get involved on your own on very different things if you want to get a good job. Yeah.
Yeah, and the we are entering into the last segment of our podcast where we are talking about like if you had to make three bold predictions about where AI takes the industry, software industry, over the next 5 years, do you have any three predictions about it?
I mean, the easy one to say here is you can do more with less, right? And I think that's starting to be demonstrated where you can see startup companies with very few people being valuated very high, right? We see one thing that I foresee that is, and I'm not the only one, there is many people saying this, that we're going to see the solo founder billionaire, right? So the person
Yeah.
that didn't hire anyone, they bootstrapped themselves and then they sold their company for over $1 billion. Just the one
Mhm.
person, and that's
Just
because
like
of AI.
OpenClaw. Just like
Yeah,
OpenClaw.
yeah,
Like a
yeah, similar.
good example of it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but that we haven't seen that yet, but that will happen. That's going to happen for sure, right?
So what I saw is like it's giving a very good leverage towards Gen Zs, where the focus is a problem. They don't have a good span of focus. Now the AI is there and they are helping. AI is helping them because where you don't have to put a lot of efforts, a lot of grunt work will be handled by AI. Just so you have to focus on the main or important stuff. So I think Gen Z are getting in a good form of AI and a good form of like a era of digitalization. What do you say about it?
So it depends what angle you're taking it from, right? So if Gen Z is saying, "Hey, I can do a lot of things for me, and I don't really need to learn anything," that's kind of the
That's
bad.
wrong.
Yeah, that's the bad take to do here. It's more like they have to see it more like AI now enables me to do the thing that I am really good at, right? To
Yeah.
to to do it much better and to expand my things. Like for example, if a Gen Z is really good at is an artist, right? So let's say you have a Gen Z artist and they're really
Mhm.
good at drawing and
Yeah.
right and creating the stories. Now, what future did that person had in the past? Not that
Mhm.
bright of a future, right? Because drawing
Yeah.
and drawing art is not necessarily okay. But now with AI, the thing the field expanded for that person drastically because you're not only now limited to having drawings and let's say stories on your notebook, but now you can turn that into an actual comic book or you can turn that into an animated short right now, an animated short video right now with AI, right? And so things
Mhm.
have so that's what I mean by whatever you're good at, AI now that expanded that drastically to many different things. And so
Uh,
it's just AI is enabling the little guy to do things that just 2 years ago they couldn't do at all, right?
yeah.
And that was locked to having a lot of capital or creating big companies or so on and so forth.
Yeah. And the next question of mine is like, what's the one book or resource or a mental model that has most shaped how you think about technology and change that you did recommend to every software professional listening today?
I don't think there is a book. Now you mentioned that, the really funny thing is that I used to read a lot of books about SaaS, how to starting SaaS companies, SaaS software development, the software development life cycle. Um,
Yeah.
all these books about lean X, right? So lean product management, lean product development, lean software development. That all is like it's not longer really applicable anymore. And so
Yeah.
it's really hard to say go read these books because I don't think they're really applicable anymore, right? And
Any resource you think right now it's good, like you can go for Medium and read some blogs, some kind
yeah,
of a
so
mental
okay,
model
so
you have to go.
yeah, so honestly, the best thing a person can do in the AI era is go on X and
Yeah.
follow the right people on X, and then you'll be
Yeah.
like a year ahead, a year to a year and a half ahead of everyone else. Like seriously,
That's that's
because
that's crazy.
yeah, and it's not a book like reading books now. There is no single book right now that you can say, okay, I'm going to read this and this is going to elevate me.
Uh-huh.
Except maybe, like I mentioned earlier, the software pattern books, architecture books. I think that's still valid, right? But
Uh-huh.
if you're talking about how do I develop professionally nowadays, what should
Uh-huh.
I do to develop professionally? The best thing you can really do is follow the right people
Uh-huh.
on X and
Uh-huh.
play with AI. So those two things combined, right? Because when you follow the
Yeah.
right people on X, you're seeing the very edge of what's happening that most people don't see until like a year from now because it starts
Yeah.
cascading down to the people, right? So you'll be
Yeah.
on the very edge of what's happening. They'll be talking about the very edge tools, the latest and greatest tools that you can use right now. You go and experiment with those things with AI,
Yeah.
and that's how you really keep up professionally.
That's a very good, you can say, suggestion towards people. And the now from this area, I just want to, from your side, like how, like for founders and tech leaders who want to stay connected with your work and thinking, where can they find you? And what are you working on next?
So I'm not really right now. I'm not really big on social media. I don't really. I have accounts, but I don't really post too much. So you
Yeah,
can definitely follow me on X, but you probably see me tweet once every 2 weeks or
yeah,
something like that. So it's not much. But what I'm working on right now is I'm working on agentic software development. So
yes,
I'm
yeah,
created a harness that develops software autonomously in steps. And so it kind of
uh-huh,
follows the software development process, but it
uh-huh,
follows it in steps in a way that AI can keep up with architecture, and it has receipts and checks itself and do all sorts of things autonomously. Like, so you don't have to be in Codex saying check
uh-huh,
that you implemented everything, check for bugs or make sure, right? So it does all that on its own. And
uh-huh,
it follows all the process from idea all the way down to deployment, which is
uh-huh,
there's a lot of steps involved in that. And then to complement that, I'm working on a like a control plane for that whole process. And so I going back to Jira, right? So Jira is kind of like it's like a backlog with where you record what you want
uh-huh,
to do and what's going on. The software that
uh-huh,
I'm creating is more like an execution layer where
uh-huh,
where the AI is managed, like I mentioned earlier, AI is managing that software, right? I don't go and create things in there manually, but AI is managing that. And then it
uh-huh,
has a human control plane where I can go in and see what's happening, and I can see and I can steer the direction of things,
uh-huh,
or I can inject things in there. But it shows me the big picture of what's happening, right? So it shows me what
uh-huh,
initiatives is working on. It shows me what work packages is working on. It showed me what
uh-huh.
individual backlog items is working on, but I didn't create those backlog items, right? I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing that you're working on, and definitely will connect you again for that, and we can discuss about it. Like that's a good idea that you're working on, and I really give you like more power to you. And it's a very really good session and a good podcast. And thank you so much for being with us. What is
Yeah.
your closure line you want to say towards audience?
So the one thing that I would say is AI is not gloom and doom, right? AI is not here to replace people because most people think AI is going to replace me in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
But the
Hmm.
way you got to think about it is what does AI enable me to do, right? So
Hmm. Yeah.
the software engineer, is AI going to replace me because I can code? No, it
Hmm.
now enables you to do much more than you could do before, right? And then it increases demand because now software demand increases. And so I think that's true for almost everything, right? So there
Hmm.
will be there is not one-on-one replacement of people with AI. There will be
Hmm.
pruning and there will be shifting of jobs. So some jobs may close, new ones may open, positions may shift, and then and then there will be pruning as to the low 10% of the workforce will probably be pruned. The top 10% will be elevated. Everyone in between will be elevated in some way or another. And so that's going to happen, but there is not a like, oh my God, I'm going to be replaced.
So you're saying like people don't have to be worried. They have to work on their own self and just leverage and
Yeah,
embrace the change. That's really good
exactly.
advice towards the audience. And thank you so much for listening us and be with us for the next episode coming in the next week. And follow us on Menden, YouTube, and our social handles, the podcast. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Deal. Thank you. Bye bye.